Hey guys, I'm about to head to bed in a few. I'm gonna wash my makeup off, what little is left. I usually look like $1,000,000 in the middle of the day, the beginning of the day, and towards the end of the day, I look like I had a fight. Okay, but this is the life of trucking. You can't stay pretty all day. But I wanted to add a few things. I think I was like, thanks for the compliments, guys, on the narcissistic video. I just felt like I was a little bit scatterbrained only because I really didn't have planned on making that video, but something just told me to make it. Maybe somebody needs to hear it. You know, I'm a little psychic, so sometimes I be feeling people's energy from way across seas, and they'll just tell me, make a video. But a couple things. When the narcissist discards you, they don't always seek to discard their victims, okay? I don't want to call them significant others like Sam Vaknin said. He said non-significant others. And I don't want to say boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. You are basically a victim. If you get caught up in the entanglement of a narcissist, you are becoming a victim. Sorry for anybody that's been through it, that's still recovering, still healing. Child, it takes a long time. Depending on how much entangled you got into the shared fantasy, because the shared fantasy has phases, and these phases, it gets more intense. And my last video, I said I was entangled for 6 years, and each breakup got more intense. When I say more intense, you become more engulfed in the shared fantasy. But remember, some narcissists don't know the end goal. Their end goal in their mind is to become their own individual. But they'll never become their own individual with their defense tactics. Their actions doesn't lead up to individuation. That's the thing that they seem to fail. Even when I tried to explain that to my ex, like, you have to become your own individual. You have to learn how to do that. It's so much. So when they discard you, a lot of times it's because they might sense that you are pulling away from the shared fantasy. And there's things that you might be doing that you may not be aware of, but they peep it even way before you start to like really resonate within yourself. Because you gotta remember, you have enmeshed your feelings, your soul, your thought patterns into that narcissist. A lot of times they're listening to every word you say. They may be disinterested, but if it's something that's going to lead them to learn a little bit more about how to play you, their ears are gonna be peeped up. The crazy thing is, when you finally drop your guard and you're like, oh, I'm so in love with this narcissist, and they're so like, this is when they make you feel like you are part of the shared fantasy, right? When you drop your guard, hold on. I hope it's not too loud. There's a lot of background noise. When you drop your guard, right, you're going to become your whole organic self. You're going to be, if you're, like, let's say you like to be silly or whatever you like to do. Let's say you like to have, like, nice dialect and things like that. Once they see that you're getting too comfortable, that's when they think about devaluing and discarding you, because they realize you're not catering to the shared fantasy. You're trying to be intimate. See, people get confused that they think the shared fantasy is a time for intimacy. Intimacy is the meaning of letting your guard down and trusting this individual with your deepest desires or your deepest secrets or your deepest core of you. They only want the core of you in the shared fantasy. They don't want all the extra that comes along with it. They don't want you talking about your problems, burdening them. The only time they need you to like burden them with their problems is when you are going through the certain phases where the parental stages is coming in. But they'll let you know when when it's like everything has to have a phase. It's a process. You trying to come in and bond with them like a normal couple is irritating. So that's why you'll get the hot and cold. You're irritating them because part of the individuation process is that they need to be able to pull away in peace. If you coming around acting like, oh, let's say they come home from work, right? And they're in their own individuation like mindset. They don't want to be bothered because you got to remember, they have a natural schizoid behavior. Sometimes even with the external narcissist, the what do you call it, the grandiose narcissist, even they sometimes have this weird way of detaching from you, right? When they detach from you, those are usually the signs of they want the individuation process to begin, but they don't know how to do it. So they're just going to pull away. That's why they don't like that severe attachment. The shared fantasy is a similar form of attachment, but it's usually under their terms. So they need to be able to pull away and come back, pull away and come back, just like with the child and the mother. The child pulls away from the mom when they got other things going on. If I'm playing with my friends, mom, back up. If I'm trying to figure out this puzzle on my own, I don't need you on my back, mom. But mom needs to be nearby. Mom needs to be available. So this is part of the shared fantasy, is that you need to know your role. You need to know your place. A lot of us victims come into the situation thinking the shared fantasy is a bond. It's not. It is a role. We're playing a role. You're playing a fantasy. Pretend you are. I gotta wash my eyeliner. When it gets late at night, it starts to peel. It starts to like. It starts to go inside my eye. Let's say you are you work for escort service, and they telling you, hey, this particular John wants you to be, they want you to act like an old lady, like a nurse. They want you to act like a nurse and come in there with the nurse's outfit and everything, right? And you're supposed to play the role. You come in there and you play the role. And then this guy starts telling you about his wife and his problems, and you're sitting there like a deer in headlights. Do I continue playing the nurse or do I be myself? So you just jump in thinking, okay, well, he let his guard down. Let me let my guard down and just be normal. And now he flips out on you. Why are you telling me about your kids? You know, you're like, oh, well, you're just telling me about your wife. And he's like, yeah, I'm supposed to. I'm paying you to listen and just be available for me. When I need you to speak, I need you to still play the role of the nurse. Why are you telling me about your kids? I don't want to know about your kids. So this is kind of that dynamic in the narcissistic dynamic. Even when you have a family with them, you might give them children. This is not gender specific, because the women could be the narcissist and the man could be the victim. The man is still playing the mother role. He's still nurturing her shared fantasy. It's the same dynamic. Like I said, I was raised by a female narcissist, my mom. My dad was a psychopath. I've been in a relationship with a covert narcissist. It's all the same. They all have the same patterns. They just do it a different type of way. So the whole idea is the individuation process is the devaluing stage. That's how they devalue you. So when you're feeling at your best, you're thinking, oh, we are bonding. We're together. We're supposed to be, you know, at that intimate stage. That'd be the stage where you get your feelings hurt, where you get your heart broke, is because you're not understanding the dynamics and the process of the shared fantasy. You're looking at the shared fantasy as, oh, this is a time for us to bond. The bonding is you stay on the sideline and let me pull the hot and cold on you. But the average person can't deal with that, because the average person that's looking for a relationship is seeking connection, is seeking intimacy, is seeking a bond. And the narcissist is not looking for that. The type of bond they're looking for is the parental role and the role of you becoming enmeshed with their type of personality. So I explained that earlier, that part about you becoming their kind of personality. How do you do that? It's like you allow them to mold within you. But you got to be careful, because you don't want to completely lose yourself, because if you do that, you will be no good to them. It's so many different parts to this. If you completely lose yourself, meaning you become a complete doormat for the narcissist, They're not going to be able to utilize you for the shared fantasy role. They need you to be strong enough to take the abuse and still be able to switch back and forth into caregiver mode. You won't be able to be caregiver if you're always like hurt or crying or in doormat mode. You see what I'm saying? So you still got to have a little fight in you. This is why they connect closer to codependent and borderline people. A borderline is going to be emotionally deregulated in these high stress situations with the narcissist, which is going to give that narcissist a little bit of a run for their money while still playing along with the shared fantasy. A weak person, a person that just has no backbone, no skin in the game, they may come into that situation and just become very, very clingy. They may become a pick-me-sha, a Bob the Builder type. A borderline might still have a trait of a pick-me-sha, but they may still give that narcissist a little bit of a pushback, which is going to make the narcissist chase a little bit. So the borderline might give the narcissist a little bit of a taste of his own narcissism, which is the push-pull, the intermittent emotion, which is they're going to play the mother role and then they're going to pull back. So it becomes the bad child or the bad mama. So they're going to go into these object connections. Object relations is, how do I connect with this object? So when they're forming the object and you're supposed to be the dead mom revised, right? They're going to look at you as the good mom or the bad mom. So if you fall under the bad mom, which is the mom that abandoned them, guess what? They're going to want to now revise that mom again and figure out, well, how can we get it right again? We go into this cycle. Every time they try to discard their shared fantasy, they are tormented and haunted by the thought of losing the shared fantasy. Now, when they replace you, when they find a new supply, it depends on the situation, because each narcissist dynamic, it depends on what the need of the narcissist was at the time. Was it resource limited? Like, let's say the new supply is, because you gotta remember, they're living in the primitive nature. So let's say you're the partner, whether you're male or female, and you have limited resources, and maybe there's some parts of you that's nurturing, but there's a lot lacking in that relationship, right? Let's say you're asking for money all the time, or you're doing something that is pulling them out of the primitive nature and forcing them to now have to think with some levels of their ego, which is the balancing stages of the whole alignment. When you put them in that stage where they have to do too much work, now you become problematic to the shared fantasy. And it may be a discard by default, where another supply comes along, maybe through work or something, and this supply has maybe a little bit more than what you got going on. They may have a better job. They may be able to cater to the shared fantasy. They may have a weaker pushback when it comes to the enmeshment, whereas you might be at first cool with it, and then you started becoming a problem because maybe, let's say y'all had kids. The kid could become problematic to building the shared fantasy with you, because now you're mothering somebody else. And narcissists, even if it's their own kid, they don't want that they don't want that attention on nobody else. So let's say you was good at performing the shared fantasy, and now you gotta split that dynamic with a child. They're gonna have an attitude about that. They're gonna feel like, man, I'm never gonna be able to play this cycle out with this person. A lot of times it's not intentional, the cycle. They don't know that they're actually creating a psychological cycle. They just know that cycle needs to be done, because they feel that for some miraculous reason, if I complete this cycle, I become a whole person. They're seeking their whole person through this toxic defense mechanism. So they do that until they hit the grave. So if you stay with a narcissist throughout that whole shift of cycles, you're literally going to lose your soul. You're literally going to lose your whole identity, because you're going to be there getting pulled back and forth like a rag doll emotionally. You know what I'm saying? And then eventually when you decide, okay, I'm just going to fulfill the cycle and just be with this person and, forget about my value system, you're going to end up an empty schizoid core. So I'm going to give you an example of a situation that is in my family. So my mom is a narcissist to the core, right? She's malignant and she's hyper. I always forget that word when I start the video. It's at the tip of my tongue. I don't know why I keep forgetting that word. It's the narcissist that likes a lot of attention. It's a derivative of narcissistic syndrome. And they just have like this whorish behavior. They're very flirtatious. What is that word? It'll probably come back to me. But anyway, she's all of that in one. And then, as you know, narcissistic people, when they don't get their way, they react either as a borderline, where they can become completely emotionally deregulated. When they lose emotions, they can become very high strung, very neurotic, right? Like anxiety. These are all anxiety prone disorders. This personality disorder, narcissism, is all under the anxiety spectrum, but it's very high on that spectrum, okay, when it comes to narcissism. So she would get so emotionally deregulated when she don't get her way. This is my mother. When she's in predatorial mode, which is she didn't get her way, but it didn't affect her emotions, but she's pissed, she's going into primary psychopathy, which is the first level of psychopath, which is I'm going to ruin you at any cost. They don't have no conscience, no afterthought. It's just time to ruin you. That's the primary psychopathy. The average person, when they get really pissed off, may go into secondary psychopathy. In secondary psychopathy, they may get revengeful, they may get vengeful, but they still have some level of consciousness behind it. They might, like, somebody might be able to calm them down and say, hey, don't get so upset. You don't gotta beat that person's ass. So you might still be able to talk them off the ledge. You might still be able to talk some sense. When the narcissists get into psychopathy and they're like livid, you could try to calm them down and they will not calm down. They will still try to finish whatever they had in their mind to hurt you. So that's when they're the most dangerous, the narcissists. This is why narcissism is a very dangerous personality to play with. Don't play with them. Been there, done that. So I'm gonna give you an example of how dealing with the narcissist and submitting to them, submitting to the shared fantasy, submitting to their wants and needs, what it does to the person. So I have a brother. He has what's called Asperger's, right? He also has an empty schizoid core. My brother doesn't really communicate with people. He's very like loner type. Nice. He's a nice kid, nice guy. He's old. I'm not saying kid, but I still look at him as a kid because he's, But my mother utilized his social security number when he was young, and she allowed my uncle to use his social security number, and he done bought Mercedes-Benz diamond rings for his girlfriends and ran up his credit to about $1 million. And then my brother had to, one time he tried to get a learner's permit or his ID card or something like that, and that's how he found out that his card was his name was being used in another city, another state. So I told him, I said, Ma did that. That's what she does. She's always doing some crooked shit. And he was so afraid to confront her. So when he finally confronted her, because I was like, no, you're going to confront her. I'll be right here to support you, but you got to start standing up for yourself. So he confronted her, and she goes, oh, let me guess who told you to come talk to me about that. I bet it's your sister. I bet it's Carmen. I bet she told you to come confront me, right? The audacity. The audacity. Can you imagine you coming to somebody that committed crime against your name and they want to know, well, who told you I committed the crime? Or why are you asking me about the crime? It's just like, ma'am, you literally use my name. Like, I have the right to ask why you use my name. So she's like, oh, your sister's such a troublemaker. This is why I don't want you dealing with her. I told you to stop calling her. She's always in somebody's business. It's like, that's my brother. Like, what do you think I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna sit here and let you ruin him? So it got to the point where he said, well, they're taking my taxes every year. I'm at the point where I owe $7,000 and I don't even make that much a year. But he was getting charged under the other guy's name. So she's like, well, I'll take care of it. Because at one time she was doing taxes. So she's like, I'll take care of it. So she claims she tried to take care of it. And every year it was still going up and up and up, the price of his debt to the IRS. So he's like, well, Ma, I really need you to fix this. It got to the point where she was like, if you don't shut up, I'm going to put you out of my house. You're going to just deal with it, that kind of attitude. So it got to the point where he just got so tired of fighting her that he just allowed it. He just allowed her to keep using him. So he was getting garnished. His tax, when it was not his taxes, his physical check from the jobs was getting garnished. And they was taking out the money that his uncle stole because of my mom. You know what I mean? And instead of him, going to Social Security and fighting them, because I had showed him how to do the paper trail. I showed him how to go file it. And I think he would try halfway and then he would get frustrated because, he has like a slight mental illness. And then at that time, I was living in a different state, so I couldn't really sit with him and do the paperwork. And then it became to the point where he started cursing at me saying, oh, just leave me the F alone about it. I don't care no more. That's what narcissistic people do. You get to the point where you actually defend the abuse. You have no more core because they've taken everything from you. The resources, your soul, your identity, your personality, and you just become their slave. So at this point, he's living with her. He's just dealing with the abuse. He's her slave. He takes out her trash. He mows her lawn. Because at this point, he has no way to get ID cards. He can't move on with his life. He's literally enslaved to this woman. So I told him, I said, well, when it's time for you to apply for Social Security, that might be an issue. He's like, well, I don't know what to do. What do you want me to do? I just couldn't continue living with people. And I'm just like, so you just accept defeat? You know what I mean? You can't force a person to fight for themselves. But at the end of the day, this is the type of situations that you find narcissists attract these sick type of situations. And when you hear the diabolical nature of it, you're like, how can a person do that? So it just got to the point where I was like, do I go down to the court myself, or do I go to the police station and talk about this? And I did that one time. I went, made the report, and they was like, well, we need to speak to the brother. And he wouldn't answer the phone. He just like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. Because he's that afraid of, at this point, standing up for himself. It's literally no conscience anymore. No soul. No care about his future. Because it's been happening for so many years. So at this point, it's really nothing I can do. She has majority of my siblings to that. I won't say majority anymore because a lot of them got tired of her shit. So it's just like maybe the one that's in jail, she still has control over his mind. One of my other sisters, she's the youngest. My other sister left and never looked back, and I don't blame her. And the other one passed away from, drugs. And then my other brother, he was being a slave to her for a little while, and he got tired of her shit and he moved on. So he left that city that she was in. So every sibling got a taste of the shared fantasy, the entrapment. And then the entrapment turns more and more vicious, more and more diabolical, depending on the level of narcissism and what type of dynamics you have allowed to become entrapped with that narcissist. Now, this is when they get to the level of being straight malignant, because a lot of times, even though Dr. Vakni was talking about them trying to become individual, some of them still have just kind of given over to their straight defense mechanisms, their malignancy. So now it becomes like an insatiable appetite to just be a predator, to seek people that kind of yearn for a shared fantasy. Sometimes people don't know that they're yearning for a shared fantasy until they come across a narcissist who's willing to give you one. You don't know that that's what you were waiting for. You're like, why is my life so dull? Or why is my life so boring? Or why am I so lonely? And then here comes a narcissist to answer that question. Hey, I can show you how to make your life so much, much more adventurous. I'm going to run you through the mud and make you forget, make you realize why you need to stand up for yourself, why you need to have a core, why you need to make sure you never get in a situation like this. So these type of narcissists will come along and will purposely drag you through the mud. So it's different levels to that particular narcissist, what they want from you, what kind of supply makes them happy, and what type of shared fantasy. So sometimes the shared fantasy can be extremely, extremely brutal. It can be torturous, depending on that narcissist. If a person meets my mom, that shared fantasy is going to be torturous. In the beginning, it's going to be great. She's going to treat you to Red Lobster. She's going to, gash your head up. The love bombing is going to be great. But then when it's time to pay the piper, time to pay the devil, that payment is going to be harsh. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be humiliating. My mother loves to humiliate people. All her friends, anybody that comes in contact with her, once they have that shared fantasy, my mother is so brutal. She the type, I can't even get into it tonight. The amount of stuff that she's done will probably make Satan look pleasant. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not exaggerating. So at the end of the day, when you meet her, if a person knows her, they won't think anything like that of her. She's such a sweet lady. How can you say that? And it's like, that lady will turn into a Karen overnight on you, and then she'll turn into Satan. It slowly leaks in. It starts off like little drips, an insult here or there, a little snark remark about what you got going on, and you're thinking, she just, a little extra, and then it turns into a straight all outside humiliation, throwing your clothes out. You didn't wake up early enough to make the breakfast that she told you to make. Your clothes getting thrown out. You getting police called on you. You talk back to her, she's gonna have you committed to the psych ward. She's gonna say you do drugs. She'll make up anything. So it's diabolical. But when you're dealing with, let's say, a lower grade narcissist, someone that just wants to enmesh with you, it's still psychologically damaging, but depending on how far you go down the rabbit hole with that narcissist, it can be just as damaging as the malignant narcissist. Because see, with the malignant narcissist, they're more at a psychopathic level, so you clearly see the setup. You can clearly see, okay, I gotta fight toe to toe with this person. But with the lower grade, quieter narcissist, you're gonna go in there pleasantly willing to go through the shared fantasy with them, because it's not as obvious. You're gonna see the signs here and there, but if you're not a well-rounded person, or you might have some self-esteem issues, or you lack self-love, or something's going on with you, with your ego functions, you're going to go into that situation willing to open up for the shared fantasy, to see where it goes, to see what does this really look like. You know what I mean? Especially if you've never really been in a straight narcissistic connection, you won't know what's going on. It does come off a little confusing, because it seems very exhilarating and at the same time humiliating. Anybody that's been in a narcissistic relationship, the way it's a whirlwind of love, intense passion, and then degradation right after. I don't mean to laugh. It's just a typical cycle. In these type of dynamics, the narcissist is a lot of times looking to individuate themselves. And when I mean individuate, the dynamic of object relations in the beginning of the child's first couple of years of life, they have to form internal objects in order to understand their own needs, right? Because their ego is not there yet as a baby. So their ego functions is dependent on mama or whoever is the caregiver. Now, this internal object that they form is because they don't understand that the mother, when she leaves the room, baby is still in the room. Baby thinks mommy left the room, baby no longer exists. So the baby's screaming his head off because he don't know what just happened. He's like, why is mommy not here? That's how I eat. If mommy's not here, I'm gonna die, you know? It's like a whole meltdown. Same thing when you try to leave the narcissist. Why is you leaving? I'm gonna have a meltdown. You're supposed to stay. So when a narcissist, the type like my mom, when she has several supplies, it's a little more intricate on the abandonment. It's not as severely taken. When they have several supplies lined up, this could be the high grade narcissist or the low grade narcissist. It just depends on what they're looking for in supply. A lot of times the grandiose narcissists tend to be the ones that have several supplies. Why? Because the grandiose narcissist knows how to ask for attention. They're a little bit more confident in how to seek attention. Like Trump, right? Trump is a grandiose narcissist. So whatever he wants, he's going to figure out a strategy and he's going to outwardly let people know, this is what I want. A more quieter narcissist usually are more schizoid in nature. So they're a little bit more afraid to go out and get that supply. So they're going to make sure the one that they hold, or the one that they consider the one as far as the shared fantasy, they're going to make sure that you have and you meet the criteria before they really lock down on you. So if they are a covert narcissist, a vulnerable, quieter narcissist, if they don't decide to settle down with that one person, they're not as aggressively looking for supply. More than likely with covert narcissists, supply just ends up in their lap because they're more schizoid personality types, if that makes sense. So that's why when they find a decent supply or a decent person to do the shared fantasy, they will lock in on that one person. And it may come off as loyalty, but technically is not, because they're still at the level of the grandiose narcissist in being an opportunistic. They're very opportunistic. So if the opportunity presents itself and you are becoming a problem to the shared fantasy, they will sneakily have a side piece until they figure out what they want to do with you. So they will have maybe some side piece supply. They may not sleep with the supply. They may not spend time with the supply, but they'll find a way to keep the supply still available in case you act up. But they're not going to go out there and seek that dynamic because they don't have the energy to keep up with the double life type situation. The vulnerable narcissists are way more mentally manipulating. So it takes a lot of mental manipulation to keep someone on the side without giving them a lot of attention. So a lot of people won't stick around to become the side piece of a vulnerable narcissist. They will stick around to be the side piece of a grandiose narcissist because the grandiose narcissist is going to still have psychopathic traits. So they're still going to have a little bit more energy to be diabolical in balancing those two double lives. So if you're being used by a psychopathic type narcissist, those are the type that's going to probably more than likely, as soon as you act up, have somebody ready to take your place, right? That the grandiose narcissist is going to be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more goal oriented when it comes to cheating on you. The vulnerable narcissist, the reason why they're not as goal oriented is because majority of time they're stuck in their head. They're stuck trying to figure out, oh, if I do it this way, should I do it this way? Their whole brain is like, should I do this? It's like, it's more cerebral. So when you're with a covert, vulnerable narcissist, everything seems like a manipulation play. How you sleep with them, how you share affection with them, how you share certain conversations with them. It always seems like it's like a pre-thought out script with them. Nothing ever seems just like to naturally flow. You'll have a little bit more fun with the grandiose narcissist than with the typical covert narcissist. The covert narcissist is kind of like you're with a cop or like a strict lawyer type. They're going to sit there and they're going to calculate and think about it and hope that you don't see that they're doing that. And a lot of people can tell that something is off with them, but what keeps them able to attract people is that they understand how to play like the sweet, nice, nerdy Clark Kent type of guy, like the Clark Kent turned to Superman. So they still have the archetype where they can switch up and shapeshift and play nice, but it's always with a reserve. They always look a little bit uncomfortable, like they got a stick up their ass. So when they're trying their best to like fit in, they still stand out like a sore thumb. But they can still give you that shared fantasy of enmeshment. So they're gonna figure you out. If you seem like the type that likes to go have fun, you like to go party, and they hate partying, when they're doing the enmeshment stage of bringing into the shared fantasy, you're going to think they love to party. Even though they go there and they might sit in the corner, you'll come over and you say, hey, you want a glass of wine? They might say, well, I don't always go out, but I love hanging out with you. And they'll make it the best time of your life. And they'll drink a glass of wine with you and act like they just love hanging out with you. So now you get addicted to that feeling of being with yourself and another person. So you're like, wow, this person loves to do this. Once the shared fantasy have been, the contract is signed, you're going to see how lazy they are, how much they don't like to connect with you, how much they can't stand intimacy, how much they don't like deep conversations, how quickly you irritate them. When it comes to like lovemaking, you're going to be the one to put the passion into the situation, but they're going to play along with it because they understand they still have to give some level of interest to you. So yeah, if sex is something that they don't mind doing, that's something they don't mind putting an act on. But when it comes to other things like the everyday humdrum stuff, like coming together, maybe, how you do activities together, a lot of those things are chores to them. Going out to dinner, those are chores. The only reason they might like it every now and then is because every human being likes some level of adventure. So they're not going to just be like, oh, I hate the world, I hate everything. Because there are things that they like because they still have a primitive nature. They still have the pleasure principle nature at their core. So they are going to like to invest in good food, going to eat crabs and maybe going to a movie or, things that they enjoy. They won't protest to that. But if it's like something you like to do all the time and it's a great bonding time for you, you're going to see as time progresses, those things would be good when they first initially go eat. They're hungry, they love the food, it tastes good. It's enticing to the pleasure principle primitive nature, but you want to have a conversation. You want to sit there and engage in, a long glass of wine and let's really enjoy each other company. Oh, ma'am, that's where it stops. We're not doing all that. You ready to go home? That's the attitude you're going to get. It's not about you. It's about the shared fantasy. And if you notice, a lot of the things you'll ask a narcissist, babe, you remember when we did da 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 da? They don't remember. You thinking they being a jerk or a bitch. They don't remember because it's not something that they hold sentimental. You are not a sentimental being to them. So when they're chasing you, baby, don't leave me, I love you, it's all fake. They don't love you. They don't want no connection. They need enmeshment. It's a big difference. People feel like if a person is attached to you, that they love you. No, attachment can be dangerous. Attachment can be obsession. Obsession doesn't mean a person loves you. Obsession means I own you. You're my furniture. You're my animal. You're my object. I own you. You don't have feelings. What do you need feelings for? I tell you how to feel. I tell you how to think. So I remember, like, for example, if I call my ex back in the day when we were together, if I ask him a question about helping me with something technical, like maybe the car, or if I'm on my truck and I'll ask him a question, he goes into authoritative mode. Listen, are you listening? Why are you talking like that? And then he'll say, talking like what? I'm like, I'm just asking you to help me with the headlight. I just need to know which part of the bulb or what serial number do I need to look for at the store. The reason why they like that you're asking them is because you're giving them a role of owning you. You need help because you can't think, because you're a dummy. So you need to call me and I'll need to explain to you because you don't know any better. So now you get to give them a sense of a higher role where they can tap into their grandiosity. You've given them enough attention to tap into their super ego. So this is all part of the shared fantasy of the devaluation. Allow me to treat you like a piece of trash, but at the same time, you still admire me. You still keep me in the idealization stage. That is your role as the victim. You have to play along with the shared fantasy, which is one directional, which is the direction towards the narcissist. You are feeding their ego. They don't have one. They're trying to develop one through you. They think that that's the way to develop an ego. Technically, developing an ego does require you to have shared relations. This is how we develop an ego. You go to school and you make friends. You go to school and you learn how to follow rules. The teacher, the principal, they're all going to guide you on what's normal, what's not normal. So it allows you to know how to check yourself through other people's eyes. So the gaze that they give you allows you to see what type of person you are, who you are, right? But with the narcissist, they don't understand the gaze of other people to themselves because they don't have an ego. They don't understand how to connect that self-reflection. So when you criticize them, all they're going to do is lash that criticism right back at you with the form of projection. So you're thinking, man, you just did the mistake. I'm just showing you what you did. Now you figure out why you did it and how to fix it. The normal person with the functioning ego will take in that criticism and understand this is something that needs to help me. The narcissism can't do that because they never formed an ego. So when they went to school as a child, they probably was the one either lashing out or sitting in the back of the classroom acting like an empty schizoid, not talking to anybody. This is more the quieter narcissist. They didn't form relations with people. And when they did form relations with people, it was one-sided. They wasn't taking in the information to learn about themselves. They was only outwardly watching people, scanning people, seeing who I can use to help me, to help me gain my primitive needs. If you're going to school, what do you need? School lunch, you might need books, you might need to know where the bathroom is, general things of a primitive nature. So when they're interacting with people at school, they're not trying to learn themselves. When we were kids and we're like, the average person trying to learn yourself, you would see when you made a friend, how does that friend treat me? What do that friend feel about me? You might even ask them, do you like me? What do you like about me? Am I cool? You know what I mean? Like, these are things that helps you develop an ego. The ego is the regulator to balance yourself out, meaning the bad things, the good things. The ego is going to help you to regulate into reality. That's why they call it reality testing. So the ego is going to be like, that's not reality. So when you don't have a proper functioning ego, you're constantly doing fantasies, unrealistic type stuff. Everything is a big fantasy. You don't realize you're doing things that is not normal. So when people telling you it's not normal, it's not registering to you because you've already told yourself these things that I have accepted about myself is normal. So you are regulating your own ego, but you can't regulate your own ego. Your ego has to be regulated through reality testing. The society is going to test your ego functions. Your society is going to tell you if your ego is normal. Because when you go into a group setting, you normally can see who's like the person that may be the oddball, who's the eccentric person, who's the quiet person. You regulate what you see in that group, and they all regulate each other, and they all come together, and that's how you can know who is functioning with a healthy ego in these group dynamics. Now, you know, a lot of people got ego dysfunction. So you go to these situations and you see groups of people who don't get it. Like the office politics. You go to office jobs and you got all these people just sitting around gossiping. A lot of those people have ego dysfunction. There was no one there to properly correct their ego. So, I mean, you think about it. A lot of people got to go to therapy. A lot of people got to discover themselves. A lot of people lost themselves. So it's not just the narcissist that struggles with the lack of ego. It's just that the narcissist struggles with it at a higher, more damaging level. I'm not saying there's not a lot of damaging people out here that's probably just as bad as a narcissist. But narcissists have a way of destroying people and destroying people's lives, destroying people's resources, and destroying families, destroying corporations. It is a destructive disease. It's a destructive personality disorder, which is why they're at the highest, at the pinnacle of personality disorders, of mental illness. So the ego dysfunctions is not just for the narcissist, but when it comes to you sharing your life with the narcissist, you have to understand that they're trying to figure out their own ego through themselves. They don't have a way of balancing that mirror to themselves. So now that they have already lost the battle with that, they feel somehow that if they can find a good supply that can bring back the mother, they can fix that mother wound and regain their self, regain that self of individuation. So now we go back to when they were 2, when they were 1, when they never separated from the mother. So when they never separated from the mother, guess what? They never got to form a self, a core. So now when they get older, let's say they were properly functioning, not as the narcissist. When you get older, let's say about 5 or 6, you start to separate from your mom naturally. You go about your business. You go form relations with your brother and sister, your friends down the block. You don't need mommy to accompany you. You don't need mommy to always be around. When they don't have an ego, they always feel this gnawing feeling of they need the approval of the mom's presence. This is why they figured out, well, if I can't really get my mom, I can form the internal object in my head forever. My mom can be a forever internal object. And then anybody that comes into that dynamic where they would fit that bill, they could become an internal object with me forever. So you would always feel like you're the outsider in that relationship. They are literally making love to your internal object. They're making love, they're making conversations, they're making relations with the screenshot of you, basically. The picture of who you are in their eternal mind. So now when you come, you're kind of like You're kind of intruding on that feeling that they might have, that feeling of that strong connection with that interject. And how you can give them that feeling is provide the shared fantasy, go along with the shared fantasy, don't intrude on the shared fantasy, and they will be a happy camper. But the problem with that is that the shared fantasy is you have to be invisible. You got to make yourself invisible. You can't have needs and wants. You just got to come in the house. If their version of the shared fantasy is you come in the house, you don't give no lip service, you don't have any opinions, they ask you how was your day, you say nice, pleasant things, not too positive, okay? You don't want them thinking that you having a great old time at work without them. Ugh. And you're gonna get the rolling of the eyes. So you just gotta come in there very neutral, kind of like them, not a care in the world other than the basic needs. Hey, you want some dinner, honey? You know who was like that, now that I think about it? She wasn't all the way like that, but she was some Archie Bunker. What was the name of that show? All in the Family? Okay. All in the Family is a good rendition of a narcissist. Archie Bunker was a narcissist, right? He was an outward narcissist, but he was miserable. His life was miserable. But he had a very good supportive flying monkeys. He had good supportive shared fantasy with Edith Bunker. So when he would come home, he didn't have to perform for her. He didn't have to be the doting husband. He could just, give her a little peck. Hey, hon, sometimes he didn't even have to peck her. There was no routine on how he needed to act. But there damn sure was a routine on how she needed to act. She had to have dinner ready. She couldn't be too excited because you remember, they don't like positive emotions. They want you to be neutral. So when he would come in, she'd go, "Hi, Archie. Hey," like a damn bobblehead doll. "Hi, Archie. I'm so happy to see you. I've just been sitting here like a cat. I've just been sitting here like a dog, waiting for you to come home, and I could just lick on you, right?" If you could just pipe it down just maybe 2 notches, you would be the perfect shared fantasy, because you're not requiring too much of them other than show up. I just need you to be here. I don't care if you got a grouchy face. I don't care if you're trying to scratch my eyes out. I just need you to show up, honey. Just show up. Yay! I'm the cheerleader for the narcissist. He's home. Hi. Hello. Oh, I'm so happy. Okay, you're doing too much now. Now it's coming off a little fake. Can we pipe it down 2 notches? Okay. Hi, honey. You need anything to eat? You hungry? What you need to eat? See, the mom shows affection. She shows unconditional love, and she shows a care of your supply, which is your physical, primitive nature. That's what the mom does. She doesn't go too far unless needed. So let's say he comes home and there's an emergency. He needs you to pipe it up, male or female. She comes home and there's an emergency. She needs you to do something. It's an emergency to her, but it's really not an emergency. But the situation calls for you to pipe up the energy to show you concerned about the emergency. Why? Because they're concerned. So whatever they feel, you got to match that. So if he comes home, oh, this fucking company, they want me to get up early and da 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 da. You're supposed to do what? You're the shared fantasy. What? What they want you to do? Oh, hell no. You need me to do anything? You need me to go out there with you? You need me to get up early? You need me to iron the clothes? What do you need me to do? Yeah, if you could just iron my clothes. Yeah, just iron my clothes. Yeah, just iron my clothes. No, thank you. It's not no gratitude. This is the devaluing. There's no give and take in that energy. It's not going to be, oh, would you do that for me, honey? It's none of that. It's not like a regular relationship where you do something nice and they get appreciated. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be you are in the shared fantasy and you will be continually devalued until you get tired of it. When you get tired of it, that's when you get discarded, because you're going to come with a different attitude that's not going to be motherly and it's not going to match narcissistic energy. It's going to be confrontational and outside of the internal object that they have of you. So let's say you're not ready to confront them. You still want to be in the shared fantasy, but you're getting a little bit of your own personality now. You just feel like not really catering to the energy. So they come home with that same attitude. Oh my gosh, my fucking boss wants me to get up and do an extra shift tomorrow. I just can't stand that damn man. Right? And you don't meet that energy. You're like, oh wow. Oh, that's terrible. Well, you'll be all right. I'm about to go to bed. Even though they may not confront you because they don't want to come off like they're trying to use you. You got to remember, this is all manipulation, secret tactics. They're not going to say, what do you mean you're going to bed? They're going to still make you feel like you voluntarily understand the mission of matching their energy. So they're not going to just come straight out and confront you. They're going to let you go to bed. But just know, now they're going to put that in their mental Rolodex. You did not fit the bill tonight. You did not fit the supply. So let's say maybe the next night you want to do a little lovey-dovey, touchy-touchy, maybe some smoochy-smoochy, or you want to go to bed and do some, right? That's when you're going to see the attitude kick in. Because you remember, they're still remembering you did not do your role as the shared fantasy the other day. So they're still looking at you as disobedient. So now they don't know if they completely want to devote their energy to you because they feel like you're a threat to their abandonment wound. So now you come trying to lovey-dovey, you're going to see some type of shade. You're going to feel some type of energy that they're not trying to connect with you. Now, the reason why they will connect with you if you're following orders is because in a way it's still a turn on that you are lowering your guard and forgetting who you are to be enmeshed with them. So in some aspects, it will come off like somewhat of a give and take because they still want you to feel invested. So they're not going to be completely cold. You're usually going to see those dynamics when you are pulling away from the shared fantasy a little bit. But remember, the shared fantasy is still you doting over them. So you're still getting some of your needs met in the aspect of primitive, right? The primitive needs. Like, let's say you want to go eat with them. They're going to go eat. It's a primitive need. Let's say you want to sleep in smoochy in the bed. It's still a primitive need. But when you go that extra level of a real relationship, which is maybe having a conversation after you sleep with them, or maybe some extra stuff like, whatever extra stuff that comes along with relationships, that's where you're going to see the pulling away and the annoyance. You're going to feel like you're being annoying to them. That's where some people might say, oh, they always have this feeling of they're disgusted with me. That's the feeling. That's why that's where that feeling is coming from, is that you're going past their primary capabilities. They're only there to be a primary source to you. This is why, like back in the day, some women will say things like, oh, I just want a man to pay my bills. He ain't good for nothing else. Excuse me. I'm not saying that in a narcissist dynamic, but think of it in that kind of way. A narcissist is only good for primary reasons. It's primary situations. The bare minimum. That's all they're going to be good for. But the hell that comes along with the bare minimum is so much more brutal and not worth the when you think back of the dynamics that you've been through with the narcissist, and you're like, man, this was a heavy dynamic to just be wined and dined for 3 months and the rest of it was all hell. When you sit back and think about, what did they really do for me? What was I really getting out of it other than seeing a mirror of myself? Well, damn, if I see a mirror of myself and I like that shit, I could imagine being with a normal person. It's going to be bliss. So you're better off thinking of it like that when you start to pull away from the shared fantasy than trying to figure out, well, why is he pulling away? Well, why is he acting like that? Or why is she being mean to me? Or why she didn't want to sleep with me? all of these things, when they start doing primary tactics, if you know they like primary things and they start acting up even for the primary tactics, understand now you have come outside of the shared fantasy and they're upset about that. It's something you did that triggered the reality testing in that portion. It could just be a phase for a week. You might have did something that came out and pulled out the reality testing, and now they got to punish you for another week or 2 or 3, however long it fits before they pop you back into the shared fantasy. You don't want to be out in the cold, so you're like, well, why is they acting like that? Maybe I should do this. Or, you start maybe fussing a little bit. Oh, hell no. You want to fuss? I'm going to add a week to your punishment. I'm going to add another week. Oh, you don't want to conform? Oh, I'm really going to make you feel uncomfortable. Watch what I do when I go out to the restaurant with you. I'm going to flirt with every waitress that come around, or the woman. I'm going to switch my ass as soon as I see a guy. It's all manipulation. They're always up here, always trying to figure out a way to make sure you stay in the shared fantasy, which is your mental prison. It's not a mental prison for them. It's their freedom. At least that's what they think. They think this is a way I can figure out how to free myself. But they never do, because all of this tactics is defense mechanism. Defense mechanisms is not normal. It's normal to have a defense mechanism, but it's not normal to run your life in defense. You see what I'm saying? So let me get off of here, because I could run my mouth all night. I don't even remember why I got on here. As far as I be having so many points. What I'm gonna do when I have more time, I'm gonna start taking notes to keep myself in formation. So hopefully I didn't confuse you anymore, whoever's seen the other videos, but I was feeling like I was missing a thing or two. You see what I'm saying? But I was trying to really just express to y'all why it's important for the individuation. It's important for us humans to have individuation so that we don't become codependent on another human being. It's too much work for another human being to carry you as a person, as a whole being. It's too much work. The narcissist person is too much work, because you have to carry them. They're like babies, you got to put them in your arm and say, oh, it's going to be okay, baby. You know what I mean? But along with that baby comes a lot of demonic energy. They're going to come with this devilish way of thinking. They always want to be in defense mode. They always want to punish you. They always want to be confrontational. And they always want to minus love. They always want to subtract love, because they're always in the mind of negative affectivity. Everything is negative, negative, negative. So it's too much work. It's worse than having a child pulling at you, because at least the child literally does want unconditional love. The narcissist doesn't want unconditional love. He wants unconditional supply, and the supply is in the form of the shared fantasy. So that's the main thing that people have to take away, is that when the narcissist finds that you are the one, it will be hard for them to let you go, because they don't find those type of people in all walks of life that's willing to not just be the supply, but be their everything. You're the mama. You're the long lost mother. Whether you're a man or a woman, you are that missing parental figure for that narcissist. And when you pull that away and you break their heart, it's like you don't really feel good about it. Even though they might have abused you and treated you bad, if you don't wake up and snap out of that shared fantasy, you'll always feel guilty and go back. This is why people take so long to overcome narcissistic abuse, because they feel guilty leaving their child, literally. So this is why it's important that people become their own individual, so that they never get stuck in these type of dynamics. When you're codependent, you tend to do that. You tend to get stuck in these dynamics where either somebody got to take care of you, or you taking care of somebody. We as humans, we kind of condition ourselves in these unhealthy ways, where we're saying the men have to take care of the women, and then the women have to now be the mom figure. And it's all these unhealthy dynamics where it just can't be two people come together, balance each other out with the masculine and feminine principle, no matter what gender, but just balancing each other out in a partnership. This is a healthy relationship. This is why these people, you know your role. You know your role. You could take care of the household if you want. If you want the man to take care of the household and y'all decide that dynamic, that's on y'all. Whatever that partnership looks like that makes the both of y'all feel loved and welcomed in that dynamic, that's what it should be. We've conditioned our culture to be so narcissistic, so one-sided. You know, the men do all of this and then the women do this. And now when the woman wants to do something else outside of this, she's chastised. That's like a shared fantasy prison. That dynamic is a shared fantasy. So I could really go into this. I could go into this, but I'm gonna make that for another video when it comes to like actual relationships. But I do feel that if you want a healthy relationship, you got to go into that mindset that it should be a partnership. It shouldn't be these gender roles like the woman shouldn't talk, she shouldn't do this, the man should only do this, he should pay all the bills. This is why these dynamics turn into narcissistic relationships, because it's too constricting. The roles are too constricting. There's no freedom to think, no freedom to be, no freedom to be my own person. I had a mother and father that was in a constricted situation, and they taught us to be constricted. This is why I grew up codependent. I didn't have no freedom. So when I finally left the house, I was like, yay, fly like an eagle. I felt like a free as a bird. And I ran into all the wrong people, all the wrong problems. And I clung onto these problems and these toxic situations because no one allowed me to be free in the mind. No one allowed me to be my own individual. I didn't know my likes and wants. So when I became a teenager, the world was my oyster. I had to figure out my likes and wants on these adventures, on these dangerous, risky adventures. Thank God, God was there to, protect me, but relationships shouldn't be like that. The parental dynamic shouldn't be a prison. You shouldn't imprison your children. You shouldn't imprison your partner. The parents don't allow their children to have a free thinking mind. If you don't have a free thinking mind, you don't apply critical thinking skills. You can't self-reflect. You can't even criticize yourself. And if you can't do these things, you're just going to be a walking empty vessel for these demonic energies to come and tell you how to imprisonate other people, just like you're in prison. So these narcissists are not realizing they have imprisoned themselves, and now they want you to become imprisoned in their mental hell. They're living in a mental hell. When I think about the narcissists that I've been around, and I think about the feelings I used to get being around them, I felt like I was sharing their mental hell on a telepathic level. I don't care how much money they might have had, how big their house was, being around them felt like a mental prison. I was not happy with any narcissist that I was around. None. They all felt draining. It might be fun for like 20 minutes. That's about all you're going to get out of them. Is like the 21st minutes, you might feel a little exhilarated, and the rest of the time is just energy pulling, brain pulling, mental play, manipulation. It's too tiring. They're too tiring. It's not even worth the whatever dingling they're giving you, vagina. It's not worth none of that. Half the time, they're lazy in bed. Well, at least the ones that I know. They're lazy people. They want you to do all the work, all the fixing, all the enmeshment. They want you to bring all your great energy. That's what they want. And all you get is a body. It's not worth it. If you're in a narcissistic relationship, find a way to get your sanity back, cut that cord, and get out of that shared fantasy. That shared fantasy is what has your mind warped. It's not the supply. It's not the supply that's keeping you in that relationship. It is that psychological twist of guilt versus interjection of your personality, taking over your personality and making it theirs. If you notice, you may even be starting to become narcissistic. You might even be starting to think narcissistic. Oh, this person is ignoring me today for 3 days. I'm going to ignore them for 4 days. And it's like this constant narcissistic battle. You got to get out. And then when you finally leave, after all the manipulation play, you're beating yourself up because you're like, man, I feel bad. Should I go back? No. The reason why you keep thinking, oh, should I go back, is because you've gotten so used to being toxically brainwashed that now your brain feels like that shit is normal. The brain is now preferring the abnormal over the normal. That's how powerful the brain is. You can train your brain to do anything, even ungodly shit, and say that it's normal. This is why you could look at serial killers and they don't have no conscience, because after they first kill, that's when they realize this might actually be my freedom. The first one, they thought, oh my God, I can't do it. They might have talked themselves away from doing it. They might have walked away from one victim and let that victim get away. But then when they finally did it and they felt free because of all the repressed feelings, all the anger, all the rage that they repressed, and they finally was able to just get it off onto somebody else and project all that energy onto someone else. I finally get all these feelings off. They're going to want to do it again and again. It's going to become a hobby. And it's going to tell the brain, this is normal. This is normal behavior. So when they stop doing it, whether they get caught, maybe they have to lay low for a little while, that urge is going to come to keep doing it and doing it. It's an addiction. So if you let this shared fantasy become your addiction, that's what will get you out of here. That's what will kill you. It will kill your joy. It'll kill your physical mind. It'll kill your mental. You'll wither away. You won't want to do nothing. You won't like people no more. You won't enjoy the finer things, all the little things in life. You probably won't even enjoy your children anymore. It's a sick addiction. And then even after you get rid of all that stuff, the stuff that you enjoy, and you're still addicted to this narcissist, and they come back, to finish you off, you'll probably allow it. There's a song called Folded by Kalani. The one part that I hate about that song, it's a beautiful song, beautiful words, but there's a part in the lyrics that says, I don't remember the exact words, but it says, even after all the shit you did, all the crazy shit you did, the crazy thing is that I will still take you back. Listen to that song. It's called Folded. And in that song, she's saying, come get your clothes. I'm tired of your shit. I'm tired of you. Whatever you're doing, this is the toxic bullshit. I don't want to deal with it no more. But when I think about it, when I sit here at night and I think about, I'm sick of this shit, the crazy part about it is I will still take it all back. This is the sick stuff about humans. Is that we know it's not healthy. We know that we don't need to do it. But the sick part about the human brain is once you condition it, it's the hardest thing to break. This is why they're able to do the things they do to us. In general, not just in narcissism, in general. When somebody wants to really fuck you over, the best way to fuck you over is through psychological warfare. Psychologically training you to think a certain way, to react a certain way. Operant thinking, operant conditioning. They've done studies on the human brain. How can you make a person react? Like you can sell a person a dream about something. And if they really like the thought of what you're talking about, they can really live that situation just in their brain without actually physically doing it. So if you in your brain had told yourself in the beginning of that relationship, I'm gonna love this person forever. They're my mate. What do you call that when you say this, that they're my one? What's that word they say? They're my one. What's that word they use? They're my. It's something that they say. They would go, oh, they're my person, and they're like, that's my person. That's my love of my life. I'm gonna marry that man. I'm gonna marry that girl. And after 6 months, you don't want to keep saying that, but you done told yourself, well, I already committed to that thought. And when they going upside your head or sleeping with your neighbor or doing the crazy stuff, you're still sitting there saying, I'm still thinking about what I told myself 6 months ago, that this is my mate. This is my person. Now you condition the brain to be toxic. You may not be a toxic person. You may be a beautiful inside and out type of person. But you have trained the brain to do some toxic shit that now it can't get rid of the toxic shit. So now you've become contaminated with the toxic shit. So now you are toxic. I used to hate when people call me toxic. I'm like, I don't be doing toxic shit. And it's like, you doing things with toxic people, ma'am. You're toxic. Unfortunately, you have allowed your brain to become toxic. So when I had to come to grips with that and talk to my ego, like, ego, listen here. You've allowed this person to interject into your brain and do toxic shit with them. You're toxic. Now you need to go and detoxify. So when you're going through the extreme detachment from the shared fantasy, that is going to be the hardest part of your life. Is getting away from the thought of the shared fantasy and realizing it was never real. That's another thing that's going to be extremely hard. Realizing it was never real. It was all an illusion. So when I started waking up to the illusions of a lot of things in my life, within the last 3 years, it was time to do a cleanup sweep. And I'm happy. I'm happy about that. But anyways, I think I talked enough. It's an hour and 16 minutes. Not too long. I've done 2-hour sessions. But we're going to be doing sessions not just on narcissism. We need to talk about borderline syndrome. A lot of people get those two confused. You might be dating somebody, male or female. Men have borderline just as bad. Borderline is more on the opposite spectrum of narcissism, where they care too much to the point where they're toxic and they can't regulate their emotions, right? So they do vindictive shit. They go into secondary psychopathy. Similar traits to the narcissism, similar spasms, similar cycles, the devaluing, the hoovering. Yes, borderline people do it too. They may not do it on as much of a high scale as the narcissist, but they have the same problems of attachment disorders, ego dysfunctions. A lot of people have ego dysfunctions. So we can talk about that over the time, but I just wanted to drop this one video tonight. And now it's time for me to go to bed. I love you guys. Talk to y'all soon. Be safe. And if you're in a situation that is abusive or toxic, drop it in the comment. I'll say a prayer for you. My prayers, one thing I'm going to tell y'all too. If you have a problem, I'm not a prayer warrior, but I'm a spiritual warrior. So when I tap into the spirit world and I'm talking and I'm speaking through for somebody else, a lot of times they'll call me and be like, man, something really miraculously happened. So if you have an issue and you want to drop it in the comment, you don't got to put all your personal business. Just say, hey, Cece, just say me a prayer for da-da-da-da-da-da. You can limit the situation, but I will pray for you and I will put your name in the prayer. I'll be praying for my subscribers. I don't know everybody's situation, but sometimes when I see some comments, I can tell people might be going through something just based off of their comment, and it'll just move my heart to pray for y'all. So thank you guys, the ones that pray for me. I read y'all comments tonight. Shout out to Shay. Shout out to my new subscribers. I seen some new comments. I thank y'all for your feedback. Shout out to Grind and Pray, Shape World, all of y'all. Velvet, I'm Your Mind. I be forgetting Young Riaz. Young Riaz is one of my day ones. Young Riaz, I'm gonna need you to help me with some editing, child. I will pay you. I just be so busy. But I love you guys very much, and I'll talk to y'all soon, okay? Good night.